Well, welcome to Father and Son. Welcome to you, Tom.
Morning, Dad.
Well, we've got two budgets coming up, the state budget and the federal budget. Now, I think the state, Ted Bailey's been saying months ago that he thought he'd get into surplus. They're now hinting that they won't. I think the biggest problem in this whole country is infrastructure, but it looks like we're going to have a deficit in the state budget. And I don't know about the federal budget. What do you make of it?
Well, the state budget to start with, the state treasurer, a man called Kim Wells.
Yeah, we know him.
Well, you say you know him. He's got a very low recognition factor amongst the broader public. He hasn't got out there much. Anyway, the idea was to have 100, maybe 150 million surplus. That's almost certainly not going to occur. Property transactions have been down, so stamp duty revenue is not what was expected. All the job losses in Victoria mean that payroll taxes have not been as high as expected. And now there's concern that GST revenue will be impacted by a general economic slowdown.
Victoria's down 400 million in GST.
Well, it's funny, you know, West Australia says the same thing. I mean, for every state that's down, that is, they get less GST than what they collect. There must be some states.
Well, there are others too. South Australia and Tasmania get a lot more.
We support them. I hope you're all feeling pleased about that in South Australia and Tasmania. You probably are.
They're very fortunate. They've got black caviar coming over this weekend to race. They're going to have the first sellout at Morfordville ever.
Well, anyway, but the issue is that, I mean, I wrote an article recently saying that I really thought it was the wrong time for both the state and federal governments to be pushing a surplus so hard. And remember, one's a Liberal government, one's a Labor-Greens coalition. Yet economically, they have the same policy. Now probably isn't the time to do it. The only way they'll get to surplus now is by cutting back on spending dramatically. And in Victoria, where we have the mainland Australia's highest unemployment rate of almost 6%, I just don't know if that's a good idea. And federally, you know, some figures have come out this morning from an independent consulting group suggesting that the company tax takings have been not nearly as strong as what the government had forecasted just a few months ago. As a result, for Wayne Swan to still deliver a $1.5 billion surplus this time next year, he's actually going to have to cut spending around another $10 billion. That's how much company taxes have
That'll do a lot
dropped
of
off.
damage to the economy because it's in a fairly precarious state. No, I don't think either of them. You know, the feds might come up with a surplus, but everybody will laugh at it because they'll see through it and it won't occur.
Do you think, though, is it odd that politically, like the electorate sort of regards a surplus as being, you know, an absolute sign of good economic management and a deficit as bad? I mean, the idea is you should have surpluses during the good years and deficits during the bad years. Of course,
That's right.
when Labor runs things, it just tends to be
The other way around.
well, just big or small deficits. You know, so.
Well, they never have. That's right. They never have surpluses. I think the biggest problem in this country now is to get some infrastructure going. I mean, in Victoria, we really need the railways. Now, I know Ted's thinking about a major fundraising in his next term of office. I think he's got to bring it on now. The announcement of the new web dock container terminal is particularly good, but that won't come on till 16.
No.
But I think they've got to infrastructure is the one thing. There's mining ports, the ports that take out our produce. There's a lot of big waiting lists all up through.
The problem that governments have is that they all want instant bang for the buck. So if you hand cash out to people, for example, it just gets spent in the shop straight away, and you can say, right, we've given people this, we can see the impact. Infrastructure spending it's a very valuable, but it's a much longer thing. You know,
but it does get benefits. See, it's not like a hand out of cash.
Nobody does, but the problem is the benefits are several years hence.
They are.
And of course, governments struggle to sort of see the future. 2016, 17, 18. They, you know, as far as Labor is concerned, federally, it's 2013 or it's bust. And even the state government, which let's remember, is only hanging on by a margin of I think it's one seat. So it is not in a strong position. Anyway.
Well, but hopefully he'll reinforce his position to be stronger after the next election.
Now, speaking about weak governments, what about in a different angle of federal politics? Of course, the former Liberal member Peter Slipper, who was until recently the Speaker of the House of Parliament, or at least the lower house, had to step down because of allegations about cab charge fraud and sexual misconduct. It puts Gillard's government could fall any day.
No.
You don't think so?
Well, if you read the paper yesterday, there's a coalition member in South Australia.
No, he's come out and said he will not be Speaker. He's come out this morning, Sender is his name. He said he won't do it. That was a bit of a beat up. I mean, so the federal government is back to a majority of one. They've had to provide their own speaker. I just you know, like if Craig Thompson is outed, if...
I don't think he'll be outed before the next election. The real hope for the coalition is that independent in Tasmania.
Andrew Wilkins.
Because he's not getting his way on the stupid thing he wants to do, mad thing about
poker
machines, but it's impossible to do it, I think.
Out of interest, I wanted to ask you this. I mean, you've been a victim in a sense. I mean, as a smoker, you've been a victim of so-called nanny state taxes, which push the price of a packet of cigarettes over $20 a pack. As far as I can tell, has it stopped you smoking?
No.
No. What do you think about this whole nanny state push, whether it's gambling, smoking, drinking, to say that governments have to try and tax these habits, into oblivion?
I think it's ridiculous. I really do. I see them, a lot of them are fundraisers for them.
Sure.
And because I don't give up smoking, I just keep paying more for cigarettes. I pay more tax, which they seem to love. It's like the old story that there's an insensitive level of demand to price.
Well, it was interesting. There was a story in the Age this morning pointing out that every 4 days Victorians lose enough money to build a hospital or a school. And I'm like, actually, that's not true. The more Victorians gamble, the more hospitals and schools will get funded because the state government taxes it. I mean, this is, the state government couldn't do without gambling revenue, just as federal governments can't do without cigarette taxes.
Become very dependent on them, very dependent. No doubt about that. Well, the other thing is sport this weekend. It's the last day of the Sydney Racing Carnival. A couple of big and old efficients going round for Lloyd Williams in the Sydney Cup. I hope he wins. He's 16-1, got a good chance. More Joyous could win the other big race, which is a fantastic race. It's got a Merrick Kane in it, Managar, and rekindled interest. Great race. And of course, over in South Australia, as I mentioned earlier at Morphettville, Black Caviar is running, and if she wins on Saturday, which she will break all records in the modern world. 20 winners, first, never beaten, but 20 wins on end. Fantastic performance.
Well, if it happens, I mean, it's amazing how when people, or in this case a horse, approach a record, things have a habit of going wrong, but we will see.
Well, Zenyatta, which won 19 in America, and that's got the equal record. It got beaten in its 20th start and they retired it.
Don Bradman, remember, didn't get to average 100 because he went out for a duck in his last innings.
He did.
Anyway, now what about also the other big sporting event? Now we've got the football. You've got to say Collingwood had a great win over Essendon. I mean, it was a 1 point difference at the end of the famous Anzac Day clash on Wednesday.
It's a very funny game because Collingwood had much more of the play. They should have been a long way further in front. Now, I'm not sure whether Collingwood went off the boil or Essendon really played well. I didn't watch much of the game.
I watched a bit of it. Look, it was a desperate affair. It was played in wet, slippery conditions. The kicking was atrocious, but it's exactly what people came to see. I mean, if whether you're a Collingwood or an Essendon supporter or not, it's one of the biggest games on the calendar. To have a 1 point margin, I think it's good for the game.
They talk about the Anzac Day being, and it is a wonderful day to remember that people have served our nation and died in 2 world wars and other wars, but. They offered it to me when I was president of Carlton. When it was just being started, this Anzac Day, should Carlton play Collingwood? I said, well, we don't need to play on Anzac Day. We can play any time and they'll turn up. And they do. And actually, when Collingwood, Essendon and Carlton are playing each other, they always get 85,000. So they didn't get any more on Anzac Day than we got a couple of weeks earlier. In fact, they got less than when Carlton played Collingwood.
No, that's true, although the Carlton-Essendon game, maybe because the Carlton supporters suspect that something might go wrong, actually only got about 75,000. Then again, if you were administering either rugby league or rugby union or indeed soccer, you'd think that to get 75,000 on a home and away game would be a fantastic result, wouldn't you?
Fantastic.
Now finally, the Blues take on Fremantle tonight. Important game for both teams. It's in Western Australia. Carlton actually has a history of playing quite well in WA.
Beautiful conditions, apparently, lovely day. The big ground will help Carlton.
And of course, Chris Judd knows his way around pretty well over there.
And big Sandlands is out of the side, which is a big help.
But it's a big test for the Blues. They failed badly against Essendon last week.
Beaten badly in the ruck.
Fremantle knocked off St Kilda, so I think it'll be a good game tonight. We both think Carlton will win, but it won't be easy.
No. Well, we'll see you all next week, and hopefully we'll have a bit more political news. The state budget's next Monday, isn't it?
Yeah, but the state budget's next week, and then the federal budget's the week after.
After.
Lots to look forward to.
Yes, and hopefully an interest rate cut will be coming up at the beginning of the month.